Well, I'm out here right now. It's later in the day after I made that short about the food, and I got to thinking about something. It was a short, so I can't really dive into it. So I'm just going to take a couple minutes here to explain what I was talking about. Hunters, especially the big time guys that are sponsored and some others, let their egos get in the way of what they're selling or their brand or what they're trying to tell. I'm not saying that during, say, a great white oak mast hitting the ground or the harvest and there's a lot of dropped corn that the deer won't come back to the food plot. They will. But here's the thing. In season or out of season, our best efforts on our food plots are just that, an effort to keep them here. Have them check in every once in a while. And you know, I don't know what it takes for proof, but it took a couple of years for me to really figure it out that when there's natural food, for example, during hunting season a few years ago, there's a giant pear tree over here where I killed my buck from, and I got, oh my gosh, between 5 and 10,000 pictures over a month and a half course of deer being there all the time, day and night. And they were eating those winter pears that were falling onto the ground. And we're talking a giant pear tree here. And they're just falling on the ground. Last year, I didn't have them. This year, it looks like a good year. But I've always known about the mulberry thing and the raspberries and the blackberries and all sorts of things. And in the fall, hunters tend to underestimate the draw of natural food. If you have in your area persimmons, if you have in your area apples, if you have in your area pears, if you have in your area peaches, if you have in your area anything in the wild setting that is full of sugars, full of carbs, and full of all of it, proteins, vitamins, the deer will leave what they've been eating off and on all summer to go to that while it's still available. Now, do they continue to stop in? They do, but it's usually a secondary stop. Very rarely is it the primary stop unless they actually get up from their beds and walk through it. And right here beside me, that was the occasion 2 years ago. They get up out of their beds, they take a couple bites, and then they go up and they'd go to the pear tree. Right now, these does that are having their fawns are laid up in these fence rows and in these high grass fields and weed fields with their fawns around them, eating these mulberries that are just so full of nutrients right now. The other side to that story is water can do the same thing to you. If you have an exceptionally dry year like we did last year, during hunting season, if you have running water, which we have 3 running water sources on the farm, if you have water and there's none around but you, water is going to be one of their first stops. Do food plots work? Yes, under all conditions they work, as long as there's good nutritious food in there, but it's not always what they seek first. I've heard so many hunters complain. I even heard a couple on YouTube, they're big time buck hunters, complaining that their food plots were going fallow and the bucks just weren't there. And when they were there, it was nighttime. What they overlooked was the acorn mass that was out there last year. And I know it was huge because they mentioned it and they went right on and they just couldn't figure it out. Well, those deer will continue to eat that for the majority of the fall until it's gone. And a lot of times when you have a huge acorn mass and not a lot of deer, they'll continue to hit that all through the fall. All I'm saying is this: learn what your fall and your summer foods are for deer. There's food everywhere. And a food plot is in addition to their natural diet. I love hunting over food plots. They work 99% of the time at the right time. The other thing they don't do is draw them off of the high carbohydrates, the high proteins, the natural foods that they were developed to eat. The other thing, when you plant a lot of food plots, don't make this mistake, and I see it over and over and over again. I'm not telling you to don't plant any corn or beans. What I'm telling you is, if you're in a highly ag area and there's thousands and thousands of acres of corn and beans around you, if you put corn and beans in, you're just giving more of the same. You're saying, well, it'll be there later in the year. So will the other corn and beans if the farmers don't turn it under. Ag operations are a dirty operation, and there's corn and beans everywhere unless the equipment is absolutely spotless brand new. You're better off planting things they can't get. That's why I do so much clover and chicory and millet and sorghum and radishes and beets and turnips, and the list goes on and on. I plant things that are different for the most part than what's around me. That's how it works. Best for me. It might work that way for you. But don't forget, when there's something natural on that they want, you're going to think that you have messed up your hunting area. You're going to think that your food plots have had too much pressure, or the neighbors have been doing something. And really all it is the deer are back in the cover or wherever this other food source is. It might be a giant cornfield, halfway across the block. That's how it works. Nothing's perfect in the deer world, but you got to be ready to move. I'm getting ready to move. I'm going to go up here on top of this hill, and I'm going to set over this groundhog hole because they're having pups, and there's dozens of groundhogs out here, and they're hard on food plots and other things. Just take my advice or don't, but I don't care what you plant. You can't compete with nature. All you can do is add to it. Have a good day.